Hello. My wife asked for a free pass to cheat as an anniversary gift, so I left for good. Now karma hit hard, and she's begging me for help. My name is William. I am 39 and I work as an operations manager for a regional warehouse distribution company in northern New Jersey. My days are structured and predictable. Early mornings at the facility, inventory reports in the afternoon, and a pretty quiet routine most evenings. I bought a small townhouse in a suburb outside Newark about 7 years ago after I finally moved into a stable management role. I am not someone who spends money on flashy things. Most of my time goes to work, the gym, and keeping the place organized. My wife is Amelia. She is 37 and works as a graphic designer for a mid-sized online retail brand. We had been together for 8 years and married for 4 when this whole situation started. We lived together in the townhouse I purchased before we got married. The mortgage and utilities were in my name, but we split most of the everyday expenses like groceries and internet. Amelia has always had a sharper personality than me. Very opinionated, quick to criticize, and extremely comfortable telling people when she thinks they are wrong. Earlier in our relationship, I interpreted that as confidence. Looking back, a lot of it was just entitlement with better packaging. Our 4th wedding anniversary was coming up last spring. I planned something simple since both of us had busy schedules. Dinner at a restaurant she liked near Hoboken, and a short weekend trip a few days later down the Jersey Shore. Nothing over the top. Just something that matched how we usually celebrated things. 3 nights before the anniversary, Amelia told me she wanted to talk after dinner. Her tone already had that familiar edge I had learned to recognize over the years. The kind that meant she had already decided something and expected me to agree with it. I assumed it would be about travel plans or money. Those were usually the topics when she started conversations like that. Instead, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, leaned back in her chair like she was presenting a proposal, and said she had a special request for our anniversary. At first, I honestly thought she was joking. Amelia said she wanted a free pass. Not sarcasm. Not some weird relationship test. She said the anniversary gift she wanted from me was permission to sleep with someone else one time. She even framed it like some kind of modern relationship experiment. The strange part was how casual she sounded saying it. Like she was asking to borrow the car for the weekend. That was the exact moment I realized I had probably misunderstood my own marriage for a long time. And the worst part was Amelia clearly believed this was a completely reasonable thing to ask. I didn't respond right away because I assumed there had to be more context coming. Maybe a joke setup or some kind of sarcastic punchline. Amelia just watched me with this expectant look, like she had already rehearsed the conversation and was waiting for my part. So I asked the obvious question. I asked if she was serious. She rolled her eyes immediately, which was her usual reaction anytime I didn't react the way she expected. Then she said yes, she was serious, and she didn't understand why I looked so confused. She said couples were doing things like this more often now. According to her, it was healthy to explore boundaries and keep relationships exciting. She talked about it like she was quoting something from a podcast. The whole thing felt weirdly rehearsed. I asked who the guy was. That was the first moment where her tone shifted a little. Not defensive exactly, but irritated that I had skipped ahead to the part she clearly hoped I wouldn't focus on. She said it wasn't about a specific person. She kept repeating that phrase. Not about anyone specific. But the way she said it made it obvious there absolutely was someone. I have worked in operations for most of my adult life. My job is basically identifying problems and systems before they explode into bigger problems. Patterns matter. Behavior changes matter. Amelia suddenly pitching the idea of a one-time free pass right before our anniversary was not random curiosity. Something had already started somewhere else. When I pointed that out, she got annoyed fast. She accused me of being insecure and old-fashioned. According to her, I should be flattered that she was even being honest about the idea instead of just cheating like most people supposedly do. That part stuck with me. She said it like she was doing me a favor. I asked her again if there was someone specific she wanted to sleep with. This time she didn't answer right away. She just shrugged and said it wasn't important who it was. The point was that I should trust her and show that our relationship was strong enough to handle something like this. Then she added something that honestly made the entire conversation clearer. She said if I really loved her, I wouldn't make such a big deal out of one night. That was the moment I stopped seeing this as a strange conversation and started seeing it as a test I had no intention of passing. I sat there for about 10 seconds after she said that. Not arguing, not trying to convince her otherwise, just thinking through the situation as it actually was. Amelia thought she was negotiating some kind of relationship experiment. What she was really doing was telling me she already had someone lined up and wanted retroactive permission, and she expected me to cooperate. So I asked one more question. I asked if she had already talked to the guy about it. She hesitated for half a second. That was enough of an answer. Then she said something that honestly made the whole thing worse. She said it probably wouldn't even happen if I didn't make a big deal out of it. According to her, she just wanted the option. The option, like our marriage was some kind of subscription plan she wanted to modify. That was the moment I realized there was nothing to debate. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't a theoretical conversation. This was her asking for permission to cheat while expecting me to smile about it. So I stood up. Amelia looked confused immediately because I wasn't reacting the way she expected. Usually when we argued, I stayed at the table and tried to talk things out. Instead, I told her something very simple. If she wanted the freedom to sleep with other people, she could do it as a single person, not as my wife. At first, she laughed because she thought I was being dramatic. She actually told me to sit down and stop overreacting. I didn't sit down. I told her the house was mine. I bought it before we got married. The mortgage was in my name. And if she wanted to explore other men, she needed to pack a bag and go stay somewhere else tonight. Her expression changed immediately. Now she was angry. She started accusing me of trying to control her and acting like some insecure husband from the 1950s. According to her, I was proving exactly why modern relationships needed more freedom. I didn't argue. I walked upstairs, grabbed one of her travel bags from the closet, brought it downstairs, and set it next to the door. Then I told her she had about 20 minutes to decide whether she wanted to stay married or go test her free pass. She stared at the bag like I had just insulted her. Because for the first time since the conversation started, she realized I wasn't negotiating. Amelia did not pack right away. Instead, she switched tactics, which was something I had seen before during arguments. First came disbelief. She kept saying I could not be serious. According to her, I was blowing up our marriage over what she kept calling a hypothetical situation. She repeated that word several times like it would magically change what she had just asked for. I reminded her that she had already admitted there was someone in mind. That made her snap. She immediately started accusing me of twisting her words and being paranoid. Then she tried turning it around on me by saying my reaction proved I was insecure and controlling. That part honestly made the decision easier. When someone asks for permission to cheat and then calls you controlling for saying no, there really is not much left to analyze. I did not argue with her anymore. I simply told her something very direct. If she wanted the freedom to explore other people, she could do that without being married to me. That was entirely her choice. But it was not going to happen while living in my house and pretending we had a normal marriage. She crossed her arms and stared at me like I was the one being unreasonable. Then she said something that pretty much sealed it. She said I was acting like I owned her just because I paid the mortgage. That was when I explained something very calmly. I did not own her. She was free to make whatever decision she wanted. But she did not get to make those decisions while living in my house and calling herself my wife. The distinction seemed to irritate her even more. She stood up from the table and started pacing around the living room, complaining that I was humiliating her and making a scene over nothing. The irony was that we were alone in the house. No audience. No drama. Just a very simple boundary. After about 5 minutes of this, I reminded her that the clock was still running. That was when she finally stormed upstairs. I heard drawers opening, cabinets slamming, and a lot of aggressive footsteps. The kind people make when they want you to hear how angry they are. About 15 minutes later, she came down the stairs with the same travel bag I had left by the door. She dropped it on the floor and glared at me. Then she said something that honestly sounded more like a threat than a warning. She told me I was going to regret this once I realized how many options she actually had. I opened the door for her, and that was the last time Amelia lived in my house as my wife. After Amelia walked out, the house became very quiet very fast. No yelling, no slammed doors, just silence and the sound of her car starting outside a minute later. I watched through the front window while she backed out of the driveway and drove off. That was the moment the reality of what just happened settled in. 8 years together and 4 years of marriage ended in about 30 minutes because my wife decided she wanted permission to cheat. I locked the front door, went back to the kitchen, and sat down for a few minutes just thinking through what the next steps needed to be. One thing I knew about Amelia was that she hated losing control of a situation. The second she realized I was serious about kicking her out, there was a high chance she would start calling or texting to keep the argument going. I had no interest in doing that. So before anything else, I handled the most obvious problem. I blocked her number. Not out of anger. Just practicality. I had no reason to sit there listening to a stream of insults or manipulation attempts all night. The conversation had already happened and the decision had already been made. After that, I blocked her on the 2 social media platforms we actually used. Then I walked upstairs and looked around the bedroom. Half the closet was empty now. A few things were missing from the dresser. She had grabbed the basics and left the rest behind. That told me she probably assumed she would be back soon once things cooled down. That was not happening. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney before I even went to work. I wanted to understand exactly what the legal situation looked like since the house was purchased before the marriage. The lawyer confirmed something important. Because the townhouse was mine before the wedding and only my name was on the mortgage, the situation was relatively straightforward. There would still be paperwork and process involved, but Amelia did not have automatic ownership of the property. That conversation made the rest of the day a lot easier. Around lunchtime, my phone started buzzing. Different number. I ignored it. 5 minutes later, another number called. Ignored again. Then came a few messages from numbers I did not recognize. Apparently, Amelia had already realized she could not reach me anymore, so she started finding other ways to try. The first few calls from unknown numbers came within an hour after I blocked Amelia. At first, I assumed she was just borrowing someone else's phone to continue the argument. That would have been typical for her. But when I checked the messages, the tone was very different from the way she normally argued. The first text said she needed to talk because I was being ridiculous. The second one said I needed to stop acting like a child and unblock her. The third message was longer and noticeably more aggressive. She wrote that I was embarrassing myself and destroying our marriage over nothing. That message confirmed something for me. She still believed this was just a temporary fight. So I blocked that number too. About 20 minutes later, another number called. I declined it and blocked that one as well. The pattern repeated 2 more times during the afternoon. Each message had the same basic theme. She expected me to calm down, apologize for overreacting, and let her come back home so things could go back to normal. What she did not understand yet was that normal had already ended. Around 5 in the evening, I got a call from a number I actually recognized. It belonged to her older sister. I let that one go to voicemail. The message was about a minute long. Her sister sounded frustrated, but not surprised. She said Amelia had shown up at her apartment earlier that afternoon complaining about being kicked out. Apparently, Amelia told her that I threw her out because she asked a harmless question about relationship boundaries. That description was impressive in its creativity. Her sister also mentioned something else that caught my attention. She said Amelia seemed unusually confident when she arrived, like she expected the situation to blow over quickly. That made sense. Amelia had always been very sure of her ability to control situations and people. She assumed that if she pushed hard enough, things would eventually move in the direction she wanted. But confidence and reality are not always the same thing. Later that night, another message arrived from yet another unknown number. This time it was much shorter. It simply said that I was making a huge mistake and that I would regret it once I realized what I had just thrown away. I blocked that number too. And then I went to sleep knowing that for the first time in years, the house was completely peaceful. The next few weeks were mostly quiet. Once Amelia realized I was not going to engage in an argument, the calls from random numbers stopped. My attorney filed the initial divorce paperwork and explained that the process in New Jersey would still take some time, but the situation itself was straightforward. We did not have kids. The house was purchased before the marriage. Our finances were mostly separate. In other words, there was no complicated battlefield to fight over. About 3 weeks after she left, I finally heard something new. It came from her sister again. This time the message sounded different, less annoyed and more cautious. She asked if I had heard from Amelia recently, because apparently things were not going as smoothly for her as she expected. That immediately got my attention. Up until that point, I had assumed Amelia was doing exactly what she threatened to do the night she left, enjoying her new freedom and proving how many options she supposedly had. So I called her sister back. She explained that Amelia had been staying at her apartment for a few days, but then suddenly moved out because she said she had somewhere better to stay. The way she described it made the situation pretty obvious. Amelia had gone to stay with the guy she originally wanted the free pass for. That part was not surprising. What happened next apparently was. According to her sister, Amelia lasted about 2 weeks there before everything collapsed. The guy she moved in with was not nearly as stable or impressive as she had made him sound. He did not have his own place. He was renting a small apartment with a roommate. His job situation was inconsistent. And based on what her sister heard, he was already seeing at least one other woman. In other words, the fantasy version Amelia had in her head did not survive contact with reality. Eventually, the roommate got tired of the situation and told Amelia she needed to leave, which meant that less than a month after demanding a free pass to explore her options, my wife was suddenly out of options. And that was when the messages started again. About a week after that call with her sister, my phone lit up again with another unknown number. At this point, I almost ignored it automatically. But something about the timing made me curious enough to open the message. It was Amelia. The tone was completely different from the last time I heard from her. No insults. No accusations. Just a short message saying she needed to talk to me because things had gotten complicated and she needed help. I stared at the message for a minute because the shift in attitude was obvious. 3 weeks earlier, she had been telling me I would regret losing her because she had so many options. Now she was asking for help. I did not respond. A few hours later, another message came from the same number. This one was longer. She said the situation with the guy had not worked out, and she had been staying temporarily with a friend. According to her, the friend's landlord had found out she was there and said she could not keep staying in the apartment. Then came the actual request. She asked if she could come back to the townhouse for a while until she figured things out. She framed it like it was a practical solution. She reminded me that we were technically still married while the divorce paperwork moved through the system. The message ended with something that almost sounded rehearsed. She wrote that people make mistakes and that I should not destroy our entire marriage over one bad decision. That line stood out. Because the night she asked for the free pass, she was very confident that it was not a mistake at all. It was supposed to be a modern relationship experiment. Now it was suddenly just one bad decision. I still did not respond. The next morning, there were 3 more messages waiting for me. The first one asked if I had seen the previous messages. The second said she was serious about needing help and did not have many places left to go. The third one dropped the tone completely. She said she knew she had made a mistake and that she wanted to fix things between us. Apparently, the reality of her options had finally caught up with her. I did not answer Amelia right away. Not because I was unsure what to do, but because I wanted to think through the situation without reacting emotionally. The last conversation we had ended with her telling me I would regret losing her once I saw how many options she had. Now she was telling me she had nowhere to go. That contrast said more than any apology could. Later that evening, another message came through. This one was different from the others. The confidence was gone completely. She wrote that she knew I was angry, but asked if I could at least talk to her for a few minutes. She said she was under a lot of stress and things had gotten worse than she expected. I still did not respond. About an hour later, my phone rang again. Another unknown number. This time I answered. Amelia's voice sounded tired and nothing like the person who walked out of the house a month earlier talking about all her options. She started talking immediately. She said she knew she had made a huge mistake and that the situation with the other guy had been a disaster. According to her, he was not honest about anything. His job, his living situation, even the fact that he was seeing other women. I did not interrupt. I just listened. Eventually, she circled back to the real reason for the call. She said she needed somewhere to stay, just temporarily while she figured out what to do next. She kept repeating that we were still technically married and that it made sense for her to come back home for a while. That word stood out. Home. I reminded her very calmly that she had walked out of that home the night she told me she wanted the freedom to sleep with someone else. She tried to argue that she had not meant it the way it came out. She said she was confused and made a bad decision. Then she asked the question she clearly did not want the answer to. She asked if she could come back. I told her no. There was a long silence on the phone after that. Then she asked what she was supposed to do now. I told her the same thing she told me the night she left. Figure it out. And that was the moment she finally understood that the situation she created was not going to reset itself. After that phone call, Amelia sent 2 more messages that night. The first one asked if I was really serious. The second one was longer. She said she understood why I was angry, but that everyone deserved a second chance. According to her, we had 8 years together, and that should mean something. I read the messages, but I did not answer. At that point, there really was nothing left to discuss. The next week, my attorney contacted me to confirm that Amelia had received the divorce paperwork. Apparently, she was not happy about it. She had called the office asking if there was any way to pause the process. There wasn't. In New Jersey, the process still takes time. But once the paperwork starts moving forward, there is not much room for someone to suddenly pretend nothing happened. A few days later, her sister reached out again. This time the conversation was shorter and more direct. She told me Amelia had been bouncing between friends' apartments for the past couple of weeks and was having a hard time figuring out where to stay long-term. She also said Amelia regretted how everything happened and thought I was being too harsh by refusing to help her. I told her sister something simple. Amelia made a decision. I made one too. The difference was that I was still standing by mine. After that conversation, I did not hear anything else from Amelia directly. No more calls from random numbers. No more messages asking to talk. The divorce process kept moving forward exactly the way my attorney said it would. The strange part is that my life actually became much calmer once everything settled. The house was quiet. My routine stayed the same. Work, gym, evenings at home, without constant arguments about things that never really mattered. Sometimes people ask if I regret not giving her another chance once she admitted she made a mistake. Honestly, I don't. Because the night she asked for that free pass told me something important. She didn't want a marriage. She wanted options. And once someone shows you that clearly, the smartest thing you can do is step out of the way and let them go chase those options somewhere else. Bye-bye.